Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to the Persistence Payoff Show. We're here on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm your host, Kimberly SCHAFER. This show is founded on the belief that our dreams and our passions are the spark, and persistence is really the fuel and the energy that brings those dreams into reality. Persistence is key to everything that we do. I'm on my own journey of persistence. I'm the inventor of the ring thing. I'm a first-time inventor and first-time entrepreneur. The ring thing is a waterproof patented ring holder, and I'm on a journey with persistence every day. I'm very excited to talk today to our guest, Samantha Evans-SCHRITTER. She is an award-winning author, actually a multi-award-winning author. She's contributed to more than 30 books, and she specializes in grief and loss. And she works with people who are undergoing both of those and helps them find hope and joy. So she has a new book that just came out. It's called The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak. And I'm very excited to talk to her. Please welcome Samantha Evans-SCHRITTER.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm actually thrilled and honored that we get to have this conversation literally right after your book came out. And I believe it just came out 5 days ago, right?
Yes, it is brand new. So
wow. Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
And actually it hit the Amazon bestsellers list a few days ago, and it's been there ever since. So that's been kind of a crazy, amazing journey as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a great start. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. You know, before we delve into the book and talk about it in more detail, I would love to hear about your journey and how did you become an author and what drew you to writing books?
I have always loved storytelling. Before I realized that I love storytelling, I think a lot of times when we have a talent, we don't realize it's a talent because we take it for granted. One thing I can confess to you that I don't like to tell a lot of people is that I played with Barbies until I was a freshman in high school, which sounds super dorky, but what I was really doing was telling stories, and I didn't quite realize that. And then I eventually just started writing stories in notebooks and exploring fiction. I love fiction. I love storytelling like that. But then my first book was actually Love Letters to Miscarriage Moms. And that was written out of my own experience. My late husband and I experienced 3 miscarriages. And after the first miscarriage, I started writing in my journal. And partway through writing in my journal, I said, "You see," as if I was talking to someone else. And at that point, I thought maybe this could be a book, or maybe this is something that other women need to hear who've experienced infant loss of different types, because at that time, there were not a lot of resources for people who'd experienced infant loss. So I started recording my own journey of infant loss and ended up writing Love Letters to Miscarriage Moms. It has stories in there about stillbirth and early infant loss, things like that. And it has stories from over 40 moms and dads who've experienced infant loss. But that was sort of my launch pad into grief and working with people and empathizing with people who'd experienced really hard things.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry about your losses. That must have been very difficult. So did you find as you were writing that book, sometimes when we're processing through something and working through something, it's very real and it really helps us to write about it. But then there's a point when maybe internally we've kind of gone past it. But when you're writing a book, do you find that it sort of forces you to stay there with that loss and grief, or does it help you all of the way through to do that process?
Such an interesting question because I know we're going to talk about the prodigal son, crackhead to Jesus freak a little bit later, but there was a huge difference in writing those two stories. For me, Love Letters to Miscarriage Moms was incredibly cathartic. It helped me to pour out my heart and to process my feelings and emotions, and it felt like I was talking to a friend as I was writing it, so that really helped me. It was an incredibly different experience writing The Prodigal Son, because there I felt like I was diving into the dark. And as you say, like, I was transporting myself into that space. I was like being present in the past in those painful moments. And so writing that one was really hard. It was like deep diving into something that I didn't want to be part of anymore.
Oh, I can only imagine. And again, I'm sorry for your loss, and the idea that you would write that to also help other people, I think is really powerful. And I'm sure that it did help a lot of people.
It is helping people. It's only been out for 5 days, and I just got a message from someone who was reading it, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I needed this book. I needed to read it. I am on page 17 and I'm absolutely wrecked." And then she sent another message. She said, 3 hours later, I'm on page 192 and I just can't, I can't get over how much I needed to read this.
Yes.
So I've been in tears kind of hearing the feedback from people, but it makes it all worth it. I don't know if I want to go through it again, but it makes the pain worth it for people to know that there's someone else out there who's experienced similar things.
Yes, sure. So in the interim between those two books, your first book about miscarriage and your current book, The Prodigal Son, you also did quite a bit of work with grief in between those two books. And can you talk with us a little bit about what that journey was like and what led you to continue that work with grief?
Sure. So a lot of the grief work I did with moms had to do with miscarriage and infant loss. That sort of became my platform for a long time. I stayed there, and just learning how to sympathize with people and their losses. I spoke at churches in Oregon and churches in Minnesota and Lubbock, Texas, and just tried to be present with women and encourage them where they were, that might not be their story. And for me, my first two pregnancies ended in miscarriage. And so there was this demon that I faced that I might never carry a child till full term. And actually, once I had my first daughter, I felt guilty almost about having a child, because I couldn't relate as well to people who were struggling with, I might never have a baby, or I'm infertile. And that put up a little bit of a divide between us. But that's why in the newer version of the book, I made sure to include all these different perspectives of adoption and infertility and things like that, because the spectrum is really wide of types of infant loss. And I wanted people to know that they weren't alone. The tagline of the original book was actually written in the midst of my grief so that you won't be alone in yours. And I spent a lot of time in that space. The second book, Love Letters to Miscarriage Moms, is the same content, but written much better because my writing craft improved over the course of 10 years. So that was kind of fun.
Yes. Oh, interesting. Well, and I would love to hear about what led to your current book, The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak. And can you tell us the story of that and how this book came to be?
Sure. So when did I get married? I got married in 2003 to a man who had been a crack addict and an alcoholic, and he was sober at the time I met him. A couple of years into our marriage, he relapsed into alcohol and then sobered up after 2 years. So we had about 9 years sober. in which he got his bachelor's degree and his master's of divinity. We had a few daughters, all sorts of things, all sorts of really precious life happened in that time. He was pastoring in southern Minnesota, and there was one night that he succumbed to his addiction and he relapsed into alcohol. And he hid it from me for a while. I saw the signs, but I didn't want to see them because he was a pastor and everything's fine and we're fine. So I just wanted to believe everything was okay. And there was one night in September of 2017 in which I caught him drinking, and we had a come to Jesus moment. Like, if you are choosing between alcohol and your family, you are choosing between me and the girls and alcohol. And if you stay on this path of drinking, then I'm going to have to leave with the kids. Because he had a tendency to be violent when he was drunk. And that was not something I was willing to let my kids be around. And so we had this moment of like, this is the way it is. I'm not putting my kids through that. So that was a Thursday night. And then Saturday, September 30th, 2017, it's amazing how we remember those dates. He got in a drunk driving accident because he decided to drink away from home. He heard me saying, you can't drink, and he interpreted it as, you can't drink in the house, you'll get caught. So he drank and he drove. He got in a drunk driving accident, and fortunately, no one was injured. He might have sideswiped a car, but he hit an electrical box, and then police were able to stop him. But they brought him to the hospital with just to search for, broken bones and internal bleeding. And remember, this is a Saturday night. He's a pastor, so he's supposed to be preaching just a few hours later. And then I got the call at 1:30 in the morning. Miss Evans, this is Sergeant Jeremy Reed with the New Ulm Police Department. There's been an accident. Your husband was taken to the hospital. As the pastor's wife, I tried to get as much sleep as I could that night. And I woke up the next morning intending to go to each service. He had 2 churches. So I intended to go to each service and make some sort of announcement. I wasn't sure what that was going to be, but I was sort of on survival mode at that point. And 6 hours after the police sergeant's phone call, I received a second phone call. Miss Evans, we found something on the CAT scan. You need to come in right away. And the punchline to that is that he had stage 4 cancer. Which was just incredibly painful. And that whole process going through it was crazy because we were dealing with cancer, dealing with the fallout of his addiction. And then it was this whole process toward healing and redemption and just amazing miracles happening in there. So that's the genesis of the story. And then at some point he asked me to write the story for him. Sam, I want you to write my story. I want you to, the story needs to be told. So.
Wow. I'm just listening. And as you are talking about what happened over a very short period of time, any one of those events would have been heart-wrenching, but to have them all happen at once, to have him relapse in an accident. Yeah, that's right. Yes. So during that period, how did you persist yourself? Like, what kept you going through that time? How did you continue putting one step in front of the other?
I had to put up really good boundaries. This is actually a story in the book, but I was losing my mind. I was angry. I was short-tempered. For a while, for about a month, I held everything together, and I was doing all these behind the scene details to try to get him reinstated as a pastor, which was working, like all the legal stuff. I was a huge proponent of trying to figure out all those details, and I was holding it all together. And at a certain point, I started falling apart. And he's like, what do you need? I need, whatever you need, I will help you do that. It's like, I need a break. I need 3 days to process everything that's happened because I couldn't. Everything was just kind of hitting me from all sides. And so I needed to be able to step back and evaluate what was happening. And the night I started packing for this trip to go 3 hours north and spend 3 days on a lake with a friend, I got a call from my mom. I got a call from his mom. He begged me not to go. And like everyone was like, I don't think you should go right now. He has cancer. You shouldn't go. You need to stay here. You need to be present with your husband. And I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, we are this close to divorce. And if I don't take 3 steps back, it's going to end in divorce. Like, I was so done. But those 3 days of just stepping back and breathing, and I wrote, I think, 20,000 words that weekend, which is crazy. It's a crazy amount of content. But I just wrote and I processed. And those 3 days saved my marriage and they saved my heart. And there were a couple other times where I had to step back and take another weekend to go away because I just needed silence to process without everyone telling me what to think.
Yeah. Well, and kudos to you for sticking with it. That's a hard trio to go against when your sick husband is asking you not to go and his mother and your mother. Yes. That's a lot of pressure and good for you for having the ability and strength, to do what you felt was right and what you needed to do at that point. So that brings me to the phrase, so strong, which people hear about a lot. Oh, you're so strong. And probably during that time, you were hearing that a lot. And what are your thoughts about that phrase?
I despise that phrase, actually. I despise that phrase because I think, we talk about persistence and pushing forward. Sometimes you don't have a choice, especially like with grief and trauma. You don't have a choice to be strong or not be strong. We had 3 little kids and he did pass away in 2019. And so that was especially when I heard, oh my gosh, you're so strong. Like, I moved to a new town and I bought a new house and I started a new job and I was grieving full time and parenting full time. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you are just so strong. I was like, I don't have a choice because life kept going. Life didn't stop. And my kids need me. I was there present for them as much as I could be, but I was broken. And I remember Mother's Day of 2020, the first Mother's Day after he passed away, I went behind our gardening shed with my coffee and just bawled, like cried into my coffee mug because I didn't want the kids to see me. So I tried to be strong for them, but there were moments where I just needed to break down. There was another moment where some friends took the kids overnight. So I think it was my anniversary, my first anniversary without him. I just needed to bawl. Like, I needed space to be weak and to be broken. So.
Yes. Yeah. And, again, there's an example of you listening to what you needed to do. And I would love to know where you think that quality comes from in you. How did you gain that?
No idea. I just listened to myself, I think. And deep down, if my heart is screaming, no, don't do that, or you are broke, you can't, you're not gonna make this. I listen to myself. I'm pretty self-aware, and I've always been pretty self-aware. We all have that instinct inside of us, and to know where our boundaries are, to know what we can and cannot accomplish. And like, I'm pretty good about knowing, like, this is a challenge that I'm willing to try and I'm willing to go this far, but if I can't make it past this barrier, then I need to stop. Like, that's where my boundary is. And so I think just knowing myself, and I've just always like listened to myself, trusted my gut on some things.
I think it's a fantastic example. What a great example for people of the importance of doing that, and that you can do it. We're not helpless. And I was also wondering, during this journey, you mentioned that your husband was a pastor of 2 churches. Did you feel the pressure of being a pastor's wife during this time? And if so, how did you deal with that?
That was That was rough. I mean, I talked a little bit with Jacqueline about being judged. I walked into a restaurant and there were people who knew that I was the pastor's wife, but I did not recognize them. And they were talking about me. I know they were talking about me because when I walked past their table, they stopped talking. There was also the point of like he was on medical leave after the accident, but it was really the Methodist conference trying to figure out how to handle all the legal ramifications because he fled police, which is a felony charge. And if he had gotten the felony and the felony stuck, he wouldn't have been able to be a pastor anymore. So there was a lot of communication about the legal ramifications. But meanwhile, the girls needed the continuity. So even though my husband wasn't allowed to go to church, me and the girls were still attending church every Sunday. And sometimes I was leading worship on stage. And, people would ask me, how's he doing? How's he doing? I'm like, he's okay. It's, we're doing okay. We're working through it. So the church also had to persist with some things because they had to kind of defend him in some ways, or like kids at school would say something like, oh, you go to that church, you go to that pastor's church. So there was a lot of fallout from his choice to drink and drive.
Yes. And after the accident and following his diagnosis, did he stay clean or did he continue to drink? No, he stayed clean.
Stayed clean. He died 20 months sober.
Good for him.
Joked at the end because he had some pastor friends that came to give him communion several days before he passed away. And we were joking in the hallway, like, should we give him wine or grape juice? And it was like, at this point, it's not going to hurt anything to give him wine. But I thought, you know what? He's going to want to be able to say that he died sober. And so he did. He died 20 months sober.
Yeah. Oh, good for him. That's especially in those moments. I'm sure that, you would especially have moments of wanting to have a drink when you're facing all of that. So good for him for staying sober.
He also had a lot of accountability. I don't know if he could have drank if he wanted to at that point, just because so many people were watching him and he was trying to pick himself up. So there was a lot of pressure there. But yeah, you're right. Like if anything would cause you to drink, it would be a cancer diagnosis or dealing with like professional fallout, things like that. So yeah, it is kind of amazing. Yeah.
And you mentioned that he asked you to tell his story and he wanted you to write this book. And what do you think, were there like 2 or 3 things that he really wanted you to convey as part of his story?
Never really. I mean, he just wanted people to know that they were loved. The story of him asking me to write his story is in the book. But he had gone to a really hard church meeting before he was reinstated in January of 2018. He had to do a circle meeting and let people share their grievances with him. And that was really hard on him. And he came home from that meeting and said, I want you to write my story. And I had practice interviewing people. Like I was writing some freelance stories, writing other people's stories from first person. So he was like, I want you to interview me GCP style, Good Catch Publishing style, and I want you to write my story. And I was like, that's a really hard ask. And he said, I know. When do we start? I said, probably tonight. And so I took out an audio recorder and the two of us sat down and he just started sharing about all the brokenness and everything that led to the addiction and the shame. Shame led to addiction. Addiction led to losing family relationships and brokenness and all sorts of things. And then the redemption of God healing his heart and being able to minister to other people. Because he was an outcast, for a lot of his life, he was really able to connect with people who felt like outcasts. And he wanted them to know that there is a place at the table for them.
Wow, good for him. And for him to have that altruism during that time where he's thinking about how to convey to other people his story and to hopefully help other people is a very powerful thing when you're facing your own potential terminal illness. So I also give him a lot of credit for having the desire to do that.
I really, today I was wishing that he was alive to see the responses that people are giving me. Like, oh my gosh, this is life changing. I can't, I couldn't put it down. It's page turning. I'm actually getting offended because people are reading it so fast. Like, I spent 7 years writing it. The least you could do is take a few weeks and slow through it. But it's also a huge compliment that they're like, yeah, I just couldn't put it down. So
Yes,
good.
absolutely. And for someone who's facing their own journey with grief right now, like maybe they're in the middle of a situation like what you went through with your husband, or they have just lost someone, what would your message be to them about how to persist through that grief, and see their way to the other side of it? Well, I don't know if there is another other side of grief, but to make it through the worst part of it.
I hope there's another side to grief, because there are some people I've met who've never been able to overcome the traumatic things that happened to them. And I've known people who've died sad. For me, the time helped. I know that sounds so cliche, but time helped because life around the grief grew bigger. But I would just say, like, that analogy of putting your oxygen mask on first in a plane, that is what it is. That is what you need to do during grief. If you are experiencing a traumatic event and you are living through the hard right now, you need to make sure that your oxygen mask is in place before you try to help anyone else. And that's why I went away on those breaks, because I knew that I was going to be useless. I was actually talking to a mom this morning, and she was saying, my daughter is getting up every couple hours and I can't sleep. And I'm like, you need to help her learn how to sleep, because you're not going to be a good mom if you are too tired to mom. And so the same thing goes with trauma, because it's hard. Like with trauma and grief, you are starting at a deficit, and then life is harder because of the grief and the trauma. So I feel like when we're living in those spaces, it requires more energy and you have less energy to give. So just doing everything you can to take care of yourself. I know, like, I gained 100 pounds of grief weight that thankfully is gone now, but I was like eating cheese. I was just trying to survive, and cheesecake felt good. Cheesecake felt really good. Yeah. So but I didn't fault myself for that at the time. I'm like, when this is over, I will get healthy. I will do what I need to do. But I was trying to do everything I could to just take care of myself so that I could keep going.
I can understand that. And, one of the challenges with food is that it works, right? You eat the cheesecake and it tastes really good.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a tough one. But, again, I give you a lot of credit for just figuring out what you needed to do for yourself to get through that initial time. And I'm wondering, grief is a really hard thing for us to talk about in our culture. People don't like to talk about death. And certainly when people are grieving, so often we don't know what to say to them. And do you have any insights into why this is such a difficult topic for us to address, whether it's personally or with people around us who are experiencing it?
And I want to say, I don't know why it's so hard. Because we're all going to die. Like, I'm not being a fatalist. We're all going to die one day, but we're all afraid of death. We all try to do things to avoid death. Like, even if we get in a car accident or something, oh, that was so close, I almost died. Well, okay, but one day you will die. And so I, in my own journey, am trying to normalize death, normalize grief. And I think experiencing a trauma like that helped me a lot to see that, but it's terrifying also to think, like, I remarried in 2023, and sometimes I look at my husband and I'm afraid he's going to die, even though I know one of us is going to die one day. But I don't know. It's terrifying. I think the unknown of what is on the other side of life is really scary. So we get all muddled and we don't know what to say, and people say the wrong thing a lot. I try to tell people, like, just say, I'm sorry, I love you, and stop talking. Like that, just leave it there.
Yes. That's, I agree with you. One of my closest friends just lost her 29-year-old son quite unexpectedly last year. And, and being there in whatever way I can to help her through her grief has been really profound for me to watch her and watch how she's dealing with people. And I think one of the things I'm realizing is that when you're the person going through the grief, so often you end up taking care of other people, right? People will come forward and they want some comfort, or they want to share their stories about the one who has died. And that's all great. I mean, people don't come with bad intentions, but it's all just a lot of energy that's being put out, taking care of other people. And that's its own challenge. I wonder, did you experience that as well?
100%. I think it was about a week after my first miscarriage. An older woman, I was working at a church as the youth director at the time, and an older woman came into the office and she was like, "I am so sorry." And she put her arms around me and started bawling. I was like, what is going on? Why are you crying about my miscarriage? And I realized later that I think she had lost a baby herself and never quite dealt with it the way that she needed to. But I felt myself consoling her and patting her on the back and telling her that it was going to be okay, that I lost my baby, but it was going to be okay. And it was the strangest experience.
Yes, I can only imagine, and it's not, she didn't come to you with any malintent, but yeah, you're comforting her. And so, yeah, I'm curious to know, with the book, The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak, do you feel like that completes the story, or do you feel like there's a part 2 that's ready to follow that?
People ask me that, and I am just terrified to dive back into that darkness. I think Clint's story is complete. If there was another piece of that story, I would call it The Widow's Mite, M-I-G-H-T. An echo of a Bible story of the widow's mite, M-I-T-E, where she gives her 2 coins. She gives everything she can. But I would call it The Widow's Mite, and I would talk about how I started grieving Clint's death 20 months before it happened. Started grieving his death with the diagnosis of cancer. And then I would talk a lot about like what happened during his death and after his death, and being a single parent as a widow would be part of that story. But I don't feel compelled to write that right now, even though I know it would help people. I need to step back from that grief space because it was eating me alive, quite honestly. And so I'm ready to write some fiction. I have a romantic suspense novel coming out in March, and I'm super excited. Writing about murder feels like a break, if you can believe that.
Yes, well, it would definitely be a different genre, so I can understand that. Yes, I can really what is the name of that book?
The Lakeshore's Secret.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We just changed the title. That's why I was confused, because I had a working title that was not going to work. So The Lakeshore's Secret, and it comes out in March.
Wow. Congratulations. And,
Thank you.
Talk about persistence. You have persisted through so many things. And I know that we're getting close to the end of our time. And I'm just wondering if you have any words of wisdom for people regarding persisting through whatever their challenges are. I mean, you have faced the loss of your own child through your miscarriages, the loss of your husband, dealing with his addiction, and you've persisted, and you also are persisting ahead in a very positive way with writing a whole new book in a different genre. And I just wonder if there's anything that you have that you would like to share with people as they go on their journey about persistence.
Writing The Prodigal Son took me 7 years, and I couldn't write it straight through. There were days where I had to write 2 paragraphs and then put the story down for 2 months. And that's where the romantic suspense came in, because I was using that as kind of like a side therapy. In the meantime, I was still writing, but I wasn't writing the hard thing. And I think, so if you're going through something hard, knowing when you have to push through, knowing when you have to stop and step back is really important. So listen to yourself, and trust yourself. And then also don't quit. Don't give up. You are loved. You are worthy of love. You're going to make it through this. Find other people who know what you're going through and lean into them, because they will be able to encourage you too. You are not alone in your grief. So if you feel like you're alone, try to go out and find some people who know what you're going through.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's very, very powerful wisdom. So thank you for that. And before we wrap up, can you please let us know how people can connect with you? Where can they find your books, and how can they connect with you directly?
So my Linktree account, has it been posted? Yep, there it is. Linktree/LoveSamEvans. That link right there has all of my social media contacts. I'm on Instagram as S.E.TSCHRITTER, and TikTok is S.E.TSCHRITTER. And then also you can purchase The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak right now on Amazon. You can either type in The Prodigal's Son or Crackhead to Jesus Freak, and the book will come up either way. So if you're interested in reading that story, that's where you can grab it.
Wow. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Samantha, thank you for sharing your story. This has been really powerful and inspiring as well. So I'm most grateful, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I appreciate that. Thank you. I wish you the best as well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And, I end every show with a quote about persistence, and I pick the quote before the show, so I never really know how it's going to fit or not. And I feel like this one fits beautifully with our conversation. This is from Dennis Waitley, who said, "Success is almost totally dependent upon drive and persistence. The extra energy required to make another effort or try another approach is the secret of winning." And so I feel like that dovetails very well with what you were saying about don't give up, just keep doing it, keep putting in the effort and persisting. So
I agree. Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if anyone would like to reach me, you're welcome to contact me directly. My website is ringthing.com. You can find me on Instagram at ring_thing_. And my email address is kimberly@ringthing.com. And I'd love to hear any comments that you have, suggestions for guests, any thoughts about persistence, or any stories that you would like to share. So we are here every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And thank you so much to Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick and USA Global TV and Radio for this opportunity. And also to Roland Friedel for doing such a wonderful job producing. Thank you so much. And also to our guest today, Samantha Evans Schritter. I'd highly recommend finding her book on Amazon, The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak. And as she mentioned, it is one of the Amazon bestsellers right now, and I'm sure that that's going to continue. And also we look forward to her next book in March. So thank you so much, and we will sign off for today.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.